Factsverse presents 24 years after this girl vanished, her brother made a disturbing confession. Before we shock you with this story, why don't you shock us with your generosity by clicking that like button? And also, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss our future videos. In 2018, a Florida man named David Lambert sat in a police interview room. David's sister disappeared over 24 years earlier, and the police were trying to finally close the case. 24 years after this girl vanished, her brother made a disturbing confession to the police. The police believed that David, now 38 years old, had a secret that he needed to share. Back in 1985, David and his sister Martha Jean lived with their parents Howard and Margaret in St. Augustine, Florida. The city was on the northeastern coast, and the family lived in a semi-rural area in a trailer located a few miles from the popular Florida beaches. David was 14, Martha was 12. Martha Jean, a student at Ketterlinus Junior High School, was smaller than the other girls her age. Although she weighed only 70 pounds, David says his sister was very combative and was a force to be reckoned with. In November 1985, the Lamberts were preparing to celebrate Thanksgiving. Unfortunately, his mother burned the turkey, and his father was extremely angry about that. David and Martha Jean wanted to avoid the shouting and the anger, so they left the family trailer and took a walk around the neighborhood. David had some money, so he gave it to his sister to spend at the store. While they walked, they passed the old Florida Memorial College. The college was abandoned, but it was a popular place for kids to play. According to a detective in the case, this area was considered the poor kids' Disney World. According to David, when he and his sister went into the abandoned college to play, Martha Jean wanted to play somewhere else. When she left, she vanished. The police began a search for her and they never found any trace of the young girl. For years, the police tried to get to the bottom of the girl's disappearance. From the beginning, they suspected her brother David, but there was no evidence to prove that he had done anything, so they could not really take any action. After Martha Jean disappeared, her devastated parents couldn't make their marriage work and divorced. In the year 2000, many years after Martha Jean disappeared, David was arrested for writing a bad check. When they brought him in for questioning for the check writing, 24 years after his sister had vanished, he suddenly made a disturbing confession. David was speaking with Detective Sean Tice and told him that he had to get something off his chest. He confessed that he was responsible for his sister's death. He told the detective that he buried his sister in a local mine. The police searched the mine, but there was no sign of Martha Jean. Since there was no evidence, they had to release David. In June of 2010, Detective Tice and another detective, Howard Cole III, decided to make one more attempt to find out what happened to Martha Jean. When they spoke to people who were close to the family at the time, they suggested that the officers take another look at David's story. When they brought him in for questioning again, he admitted that Martha Jean had asked him for more money when they were at the old college. He refused her request. When he refused, his sister went after him and hit him. When he pushed her away, she fell over backward on a piece of metal that was coming up from the ground. It pierced her skull, and she died. He believed the accident was his fault. David said he tried to help his sister. He picked her up and there was blood coming out the back of her head. He tried to call out for help, but there was nobody around. He decided to cover up the accident and he used an old street sign as a shovel to bury his sister. When the detectives asked why he didn't tell his parents about the accident, he said that he was worried about their reaction. He said that he feared his mother and was terrified of her possible reaction. When the police placed a photo of Martha Jean on the table, he signed a confession admitting his role in his sister's death. David drew a map so the investigators could find his sister's body. Unfortunately, though, they never found it. His mother didn't believe David had anything to do with it, and she told police that David often told wild stories for attention. He even withdrew his statement later. Police had no choice but to drop the case. Even though they did believe he was guilty, they couldn't file charges. Also, the law changed since 1985, and based on his age at the time and the circumstances surrounding his sister's death, he couldn't be charged. We may never know what really happened to Martha Jean on that Thanksgiving Day. Subscribe for more.